What is anxious attachment? If that is your question, I have some phenomenal answers that are often not discussed on YouTube. So stick around till the end because I'm going to go over things like how is anxious attachment created, the signs of anxious attachment. There are about 10 of them. Excuse the frog in my throat. And at the end, I'm going to give you a tip on how you can start to heal your attachment if you so desire. Or perhaps this is for a partner. So then you can also send this to your partner or to your loved one and help them to sort out their attachment. So in this video, I'm going to start with the name. What is in the name? I've got my notes here. So if you see me looking down and fiddling, it's just because I want to stay on track and make this as valuable as possible for you. So the name, anxious, preoccupied. The anxiety comes from an abandonment core wound. If an infant is going to be abandoned, they're going to die, basic, right? So it's quite dramatic. But remember that these wounds were created when we were very little. And this is why a lot of the anxious preoccupied individuals have such huge reactions to any upsets in their relationship, which leads me to the preoccupied part. They are preoccupied with relationships. So their relationships are on their mind all the time. When their relationships are not going well, it is going to be difficult for the anxious, preoccupied individual to do well at work. They are constantly going to be thinking about it. If their work relationships are not going to be doing well, it's difficult for them to focus on work until the upset has been resolved. So that's the anxious and the preoccupied part of the anxious preoccupied attachment style. If you don't know what attachment styles are, then go and see my other video, which I'm going to link down below in the description, and I will explain in that video, or I do explain in that video, everything you need to know about that. So how was anxious preoccupied attachment style created? I'm going to go over this very briefly, and I'm going to create a completely separate video with all the possible scenarios of how this attachment came to be. But for the purposes of this video, let's just say that it was inconsistent parenting. What do I mean by that? One parent, warm, friendly, loving, attentive. The other person, cold, avoidant, removed. And then there isn't this consistency of creating a strategy for how do I have to act in order to get my needs fulfilled from the world. Because when a child has their needs fulfilled by their parents, they feel safe, they feel loved, they feel held in their vulnerability. So if that doesn't happen, they don't feel safe. Other instances could be something like death in the family, real abandonment, divorce, one parent is working or both parents are working. But the main characteristic here is that the anxious preoccupied individual felt love, and love felt good for them. They have positive associations to love. However, they also got some negative associations and this belief that love doesn't last. It's going to be taken away at any given moment. I don't know when this is going to happen. And I have to work extremely hard to keep love. So I have this core wound of abandonment and a fear of being too much, too needy, or on the other hand, I am not enough to keep love. Okay, so this is kind of what the anxious preoccupied individuals are constantly dealing with this, with underneath the surface in their subconscious mind. So what I'm about to share with you are some of, you can say like these industry secrets. They're not really secrets, but you can say that because a lot of people don't discuss them. It's how coaches establish what attachment style a person is just from the first interaction. Of course, we can't always judge a book by its cover, and there are many combination of these factors that have to be present in order for a person to have an anxious preoccupied attachment style. But these are kind of like the telltale signs that if you meet somebody for the first time, you can guess like, oh, this person might have an anxious preoccupied attachment style. They might also have a fearful avoidant attachment style, okay? So I'm going to make a separate video on that as well, about what are the differences. But this could give you more or less an idea of how to interact with them. Maybe you know that your one Aunt Betty is like this, and now you can go like, oh, this is why she's doing that. It's not personal. It's not about me. It's just about her own fears, her own abandonment wounds. This is why she's acting like that with me, which builds understanding and compassion, and then it helps us to foster healthier relationships. So this is what I really love about attachment theory. Okay, so let's go into point number 1 out of 10 is appearance. So if you consider a person who fears abandonment, who fears being disliked and craves connection, they want people close to them, of course they're going to look good. They're going to try their best and do whatever they can in order to create connection, to be physically appealing. So often anxious preoccupied individuals look good. They take care of themselves, they groom, maybe they're on top of their fashion, maybe they're wearing jewelry, or you know, if they're a female, maybe doing their nails. Not always, but this is predominantly the case with most anxious preoccupied individuals. Of course, if they have an extremely high level of anxiety or depression, appearance might go out the window. But this is just like the first telltale sign. Not all good-looking people have anxious preoccupied attachment style, but if there is a combination of these factors, they might. Okay, so 2, body language. All right, so again, we're thinking about a person who likes to connect. They're going to be open to you. They're most probably going to be facing you. They want proximity. They want to be close. Maybe they give you hugs and kisses. Even on the first meeting, you know, kiss, kiss, kind of like this European or French way of greeting each other. They might even touch you while they're talking, and they might lean in towards you. And just to draw a comparison so you can see that this is not always normally the case, the dismissive avoidant will keep their distance. They like their personal space. They generally will not just hug and kiss you on the first time they meet you. Even later on, they might be a little bit resistant, and if they do hug you, it's kind of like this half hug when their chest is forward and they tap you on the back and their butt is back, and it's kind of like this weird hug. Whereas the anxious preoccupied will just like embrace you, right? They will make you feel warm. They will make you feel appreciated because they want you to feel good. They also don't want you to feel rejected because they think internally most people are like they are, and they want to prevent other people from feeling rejected or abandoned. So they want you to feel good and embraced. Another very interesting fact that doesn't get spoken about is eye gaze. An anxious preoccupied individual wants to take you in, so they're very attentive to you. They're less likely to just look away and lose eye contact. They will search for eye contact. They will search for the cues on your face and your body language to figure out, are you enjoying this conversation? They are hyper alert and aware to any signs that you might not be enjoying the conversation or that there is some kind of disconnect. And if they feel that there is, they're going to try to reconnect again, or they're going to feel very anxious and think, what did I say? What did I do? And that might trigger their anxiety and they need reassurance. Did I say something to upset you? Are you okay? Even if a person like a dismissive avoidant might just zone out a little bit because the conversation might be too intense for them and they just need their own space because they feel better in their own space, and then they come back. An anxious preoccupied person might see that as something that they've done. Okay, so anxious preoccupied individuals often reflect on themselves and not really reflecting like what is going on for the other person. They think, oh, I have done something wrong. I have said something wrong, which you can see just feeds those little gremlins of anxiety in their mind, which is quite sad because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at the end of the day. 3, talking patterns. They will usually talk very fast. They might interrupt you because they think in those ways. They have a lot of thoughts and a very jumpy mind. So they might start with a topic and then they might jump to another topic, and it's quite disorganized. Their mind space is quite disorganized. They can't really make sense of their thinking. It's not super congruent, right? It's kind of like anxiety. You can think about that anxious energy of like just jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. This is why meditation, like focusing meditation, is so amazing for anxious, preoccupied individuals. It's super hard, I know, because I have that kind of brain as well. But it's extremely beneficial where you can string a thought together, make sense out of it, make sense out of your emotional component as well, or emotional experience. And then you can process better. But that's kind of like the tip of what you can do to start to heal that as well. So pace is quite fast. They might interrupt you. They talk in disjointed ideas or sentences, and you can pick it up how their anxious brain is working. And often they will discuss people and relationships. Even if you ask them, how is work going? A dismissive avoidant might tell you about the project, the scope of the project, how much they are earning, where they will have to travel to, the logistics of it, very logical. Whereas the anxious preoccupied will talk about the people. I've got this amazing boss or amazing people working under me, or my co-workers, and they will talk about the emotional component of their work environment and how that is influencing them. And they might even ask you about your opinion. Oh, what do you think about this? Susie said this to me. Do you think my reply was good enough? Do you think that I was wrong? Do you think she was wrong? So there's a lot of emotions involved in how they speak. Even if they don't mention the names of emotions, you can feel the charge of emotions behind what they are saying as they relate everything to people and that abandonment wound and trying not to get rejected or abandoned in all situations in life. They will sometimes gossip. Gossip is like this quick hack to create connection between people, but it always backfires, because if you gossip to me, I am not going to feel comfortable to be vulnerable with you later, because subconsciously I know you're going to gossip about me to somebody else. So it's kind of like this tricky hack that is later on sabotaging relationships. So that's a quick one. You can just stop gossiping. Don't feel bad about it if you do it. Just realize why you're doing it and just find a different way to connect with people. The really positive things about anxious preoccupied in their language and how they communicate is that they will give people compliments. They will find something to appreciate about you. If it's your appearance or your personality, they will compliment you to make you feel good. They will also ask your opinions, and you might also pick up that they are seeking approval through how they are talking to you. Number 4, personality. Anxious preoccupied individuals are such warm and friendly people. They are charming, they are charismatic, they love to connect with people, they love social interaction. So they're awesome people. However, everybody has their downside, and this particular attachment style has poor boundaries, unfortunately, due to their upbringing and of course this abandonment wound that we keep talking about. So that might be a way in which they sabotage their relationships as well, because they don't respect their own boundaries. They were never taught that they are allowed to have their own boundaries. So they believe that we should all be boundaryless, like kind of this unity consciousness. You know, when I talk about spiritual bypassing with attachment style is a lot of people think about like, oh, we should all just share love and not have boundaries, and if I serve you, you're going to do better and we all do better, which is the truth. But often the anxious preoccupied individuals will sacrifice themselves, will give so much of themselves where they deplete themselves. And then when other people have boundaries, they will find that like a slap in the face. They will get offended and resentful eventually. So if you are an anxious preoccupied individual and you find yourself really hurt a lot of the time, angry, resentful, and you know you're resentful because you think about things a lot, it's like goes on repeat in your mind, you ruminate over certain situations and your thoughts are kind of biting and think, oh, the next time Susie does this, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do that, and you feel disempowered. Just check out how much are you giving versus to how much you are receiving. Once you develop better boundaries, it's just going to be so much easier for you to feel more empowered, to feel more held, to feel more supported in life. And like the interactions that you have are more fair and equal. Okay, but again, imagine if somebody has an abandonment wound, they will be very scared to set a boundary in case that boundary upsets somebody and creates distance. Okay, that's the main cause. Even if you know you have an anxious preoccupied attachment style and you have been working with this for a while and you think, I'm watching all of these videos and I know I should set boundaries, but I'm just unable to set boundaries. The reason might be it's that you have not addressed your abandonment core wound. And until you do that, you are going to people please and be boundaryless. Okay? So 5, self-confidence. This is the trickiest part. Their self-confidence fluctuates so much because it is dependent on other people's opinions. So think about it. When you wake up in the morning and sometimes you're just grumpy, everything that you're going to encounter in that morning or throughout the day, you're going to wear those tainted lenses and everything is going to be a little bit gray. So when our self-confidence is reliant on other people's opinions, it is very volatile. So an anxious preoccupied individual feels that they are worthy as long as their relationships are going well. The minute there is conflict anywhere in their lives, their self-confidence takes a huge dip. This is why it's so important to start self-validating so that an anxious preoccupied individual can establish their own sense of identity and opinion of who they are, knowing that I am doing the best that I can with what I have. My intentions are good. And if something comes up in the world where perhaps I said something wrong or I've done something wrong, I can address that. I have the skills and tools to address that. And if I don't have those skills and tools, I can learn. Okay, that's basically self-confidence in a nutshell. And this is what I'm describing, like more of a secure, attached individual where they are in the present moment, right? So a securely attached individual is in the present moment. They know who they are. They can respond to life as it is happening. So they are not preoccupied with relationships all the time. They don't have to think, oh, the next time I see Susie, this is what I have to say. It's not this power play. They just in the moment, focusing on the task that is in front of them, and then when something happens, they can switch and take care of that. And this is a very valuable skill, and this is why I encourage anxious preoccupied individuals to practice things like meditation, mindfulness, coming back into the present moment. It's tough, but it's really going to help you control the anxiety, or not control, but resolve the anxiety that is happening as well. And build a stronger self-confidence, because you don't want to just fluctuate with the whole world, right? 6, fears. Fears are also core wounds. Core wounds are just basically emotional wounds. I always tell my clients to see their core wounds as physical wounds. If you have a wound on your arm, you are going to be very protective of that area. And then when somebody just touches your arm, you're going to have a very big reaction to that. Meanwhile, if there is no wound on your arm and somebody pokes you in the arm, you're going to have a lot more resilience to handle that poking. After some time, you might feel like, oh, this is getting annoying, please stop. But it's not going to be such a huge reaction as when you have a wound, somebody puts their finger in your wound, you are immediately going to explode. And this is what causes the triggering and that big emotional response to the world. Okay, so whenever you have a emotional response that is higher than the 3 out of 10, from 0 being completely you chilled, you calm, you are relaxed, to 10 being extremely upset, if it's above a 3, you're responding to something, or you're reacting rather to something that has happened in your past. And most of anxious preoccupied individuals are doing this. Okay, not only them, dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance also do that. But this is a video just for anxious preoccupied individuals. Okay, so the core wounds, like I've mentioned, abandonment. So that abandonment fear can be infiltrating all of life, just depends on how intense it is. Even at work, they might worry, like, am I worthy enough of being here? Is my work good enough? Or if you have your own business, are my clients all of a sudden going to abandon me? So it might be in all areas of life, not just in their romantic relationships, but of course it's going to be highlighted in romantic relationships. We can also have like a mostly secure attachment style with a little bit of anxiety in there, because maybe for the most part of your childhood you had like a secure upbringing and then something happened. Maybe somebody unfortunately passed away, or there was a divorce or something like that. And then you do have the anxious preoccupied attachment style, but it's more situational. Maybe it's just with regards to a certain person, like your mom or your dad or your sibling or your romantic partner. Okay, so you might have this just in one area of your life, while the other areas are quite cool and you are relaxed. Other wounds that stem from this abandonment wound are things like not being liked, feeling rejected, and this swing between I am not enough, therefore I have to overcompensate and always prove that I am worthy of love, prove that I am worthy of connection and work and everything like that. And then on the other hand, feeling like I am too much. I have too much need for connection, I can give too much, I am just too much. So they swing between I'm not enough and I'm too much. So if you consider those wounds, then the emotions that are going to be coming up because of those wounds are emotions of anxiety, fear, sadness, loneliness, and like I've mentioned before, resentment, because to pacify these fears, they're going to overcompensate, overgive, people please, and then later on when people are not giving back, this is going to end up in resentment. And this is a very common thing that anxious preoccupied and fearful avoidance have in common as well. Number 7. How are anxious preoccupied individuals in relationships? Okay, so they really love relationships, they want to be in relationships, and they usually pursue relationships. So they are going to be the one who will text you and go like, hey, how are you doing? Do you want to go out? Do you want to go here? I really liked our date last night. Do you want to go out again? They are going to be the one questioning, what are we? Who are we? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Can we move on to the next stage of our relationship? Let's move in together. When are we going to get married? Okay, not all of those questions are always an indication of an anxious preoccupied attachment style. However, if it does come with that anxious emotional charge, then it's definitely an indication of anxiety that is together with those questions. Because yes, it could be very normal for the stage of the relationship we're at to just ask a question like, hey, you know what? I like you. This is going very well. I would like us to be official, and what do you think about that? Okay, so you can hear that that is coming from a different place than this anxiety that's coming up that's saying, who are we? I need to know who we are. Please tell me what is going on. What do you feel about me? Okay, can you hear the difference? There's this emotional charge and pressure that is in the language. So they are going to be the pursuer. The positive traits, and the pursuer, I didn't put in the positive or negative traits because it depends on how you see it. Some people love being pursued, right? So if another anxious person wants to be pursued, that's a fantastic trait. But then if you have a person that is more on the avoidant spectrum, then they might feel that it is overwhelming. So it's very subjective about how people see being the pursuer. So the positive traits of anxious preoccupied individuals in relationships is that they are loving, they are giving, they are nurturing, they want to make you feel good, and they are very tender. However, they are not, and these might be the negative traits, they are not assertive, so they don't have boundaries, and that can lead to further troubles, like I've mentioned so many times, being resentful. And I just mention it all the time because it's very important. So just boundaries, guys, boundaries. Okay, hypervigilance. And this is another thing that really bothers anxious preoccupied attachers as well as fearful avoidance, is that over-attunement to other people. Sometimes anxious preoccupied individuals as well as fearful avoidance struggle to even read because they are just so attuned to what is going on in their environment that they can't focus on reading. And they might think like, oh, I'm so ADD. And it might be, but it can also be a sign of anxious attachment and hypervigilance. Because throughout childhood, they learned that I have to hyper-attune to everybody else to get my needs met. I need to figure out what is mom feeling, what is dad feeling, or whoever was taking care of you when you were growing up. And I have to figure out how do I adjust myself in order to get my needs fulfilled today or not to get into trouble. So insecure, they are insecure in relationships, they are people pleasing, sometimes they can be clingy and needy of reassurance, and that reassurance needs to be on tap all the time. You might reassure your partner and 5 minutes later they will ask you again, is everything okay? I see you looking like you're upset. What is going on? They want to know what you're thinking. That is that hypervigilance in combination with the abandonment core wound being triggered, and any sign of their partner not being fully tuned into the relationship, that will trigger the abandonment core wound, and they will then ask for reassurance or try to get reassurance indirectly from their partner. So their phone communication, they might be on their phone quite a lot and want to connect with their partners very often through texting or through phone calls. Like I mentioned, they have poor boundaries and they can sometimes be jealous. Number 8, relationship communication. So they want that frequent and constant reassurance through being connected throughout the day. They don't do very well with going for the whole day without any communication. They will sometimes phone, put down the phone, phone again. And I know this sometimes happened to me when I had one of my loved ones has an anxious preoccupied attachment style, and sometimes I get out of a consultation and I see 20 missed calls and I think, oh my gosh, something has happened, I need to get back to this person, and nothing has happened. It's just the anxious preoccupied attachment style that needed connection. So that's what, you know, sometimes people might receive that as a sign of some kind of alarm, and it might alarm certain people. So if you are the anxious preoccupied attachment style, I'm also giving a slight perspective of how this is landing with some people, and this is why you might be getting the responses from people that you are getting. Okay, the communication in relationships is often indirect. So they will not directly tell you, hey, I need reassurance or I need a compliment, because they feel like if you don't say it, it's not authentic and they don't want it then. They want you to simply come out and compliment them just like they compliment you. They think that this is standard practice, and if you appreciate somebody, you should be just normally telling them. Meanwhile, some people will think like, oh, I told her that she's beautiful this week and that's enough. Meanwhile, for an anxious preoccupied person, you can never tell them enough. Like every 5 minutes, they will love it. Okay. They are not assertive, unfortunately, and they expect people to mind read just like they do. They mind read. They try to figure out, like, how can I please this person? How can I get their needs fulfilled? And they think that this is love. So when they don't receive that back from their partner, they feel unloved. Okay, so if you have this attachment style, just realize that this is because of your attachment, and it's not just standard practice. We want to get to a point in a relationship where we kind of chilled and relaxed, and it's not always requiring so much tending to, okay? It doesn't have to be so labor intensive. We can get to a place where it's like, oh, we love each other, it's really cool, I can focus on my work throughout the day, you can focus on your work, and having that safety and security that later on in the evening or whenever we can reconnect and we can have a really good time, and that space in between can feel safe and it can still feel loving. Okay, so we're moving on to conflict in relationships. They often fight for the relationship, okay? If you are an anxious, preoccupied individual, tell me if this resonates in the comments. Do you fight for the relationship? And your partner might be like, why are they fighting with me? They don't like me. I'm doing something wrong. Especially if you are with an avoidant person, they're just going to shut down. They're going to think, I'm doing something wrong. I can never please this person. I don't have what it takes to be in this relationship. And they will withdraw because it triggers their inadequacy wound. And for you, you're like, I'm all in, let's fight this out, let's stay up all night, let's have this passionate fight, and then we can make up and sort it out and it's going to be fine. And the other person just doesn't get it, and then you think, this person's not fighting with me, my partner's not fighting with me, so they don't care about me. Okay, it's not the case. There is a way to resolve conflict which doesn't include fighting and you having to pursue and really work so hard on fighting for the relationship. The conflict resolution, they can get into anger because of all the suppressed resentment throughout time where they people please, and now they feel like, oh, it's been such a long time that I actually didn't set my boundaries, I didn't voice my needs, and you are just not mind reading and you are not showing up for me, so now I'm really, really angry. But underneath that anger is like hurt, because the abandonment wound is triggered, and the thoughts are, you don't care. You don't care about me. You don't want to be in this relationship. I'm just here by myself on my own. And that is very alienating, and it creates separation in relationships. Whereas a secure individual can maintain this idea of, we are together solving a problem. Whereas the anxious, preoccupied individual doesn't. They usually have this idea of like, it's me against you, but mostly it's like, how do I please you or do something to get the response that I need from you? Okay, so it becomes very much about the external. It's about the other person versus what is it about me, and how can we resolve the conflict together and work through this together. Okay, so try, if you're an anxious, preoccupied individual, see if you can get to places where you're thinking of, it's like, okay, I can still maintain my calm. I don't have to fight through conflict. The easier way is going to be rather to think you and me working through a problem, working together against this problem. They can also get critical, sometimes like little snarky remarks at their partner. If the partner stays at work late and the anxious preoccupied individual, instead of asking for reassurance and connection, which will get them that a lot quicker because they don't want to seem needy, they will rather say like, oh, you don't prioritize me, work always comes first. So they will make these snarky remarks and then they will get a response equal to that. Okay, and I didn't get this when I started, attachment theory healing or healing my attachment style. I didn't get that. I thought that everybody kind of interacted like this and they know that if I'm a little bit critical, they need to give me love. No, they will not give you love because you're being mean to them. Plain and simple. Okay, what is that saying? You will rather attract bees with honey than with poop or something, a bear with honey than with poop. So yeah, if you're sweet and you just say like, hey, I would really love to connect, I missed you, you're going to have a much different response than being critical of your partner. All right, so let's move on. Number 9, the shadow. The shadow aspect is that unfortunately, the anxious preoccupied individuals have learned to self-abandon. What does that mean? Okay, I'm not in touch with my emotions. I'm not in touch with my needs. I believe that everybody else needs to fulfill my emotions, pacify my emotions, and fulfill my needs. So I don't know what to do with them. So I feel very anxious and I just run away from my emotional experience through connecting with everybody else around me. And at the same time, I prioritize everybody else's emotions and needs. I please them versus doing what it is that I need, which would require a connection to self and healthy boundaries, okay, and emotional regulation skills. That's what has to happen. You have to reparent that inner child. Your inner child is just basically your emotional component. If you imagine you have a physical baby and now the baby's crying and you go, oh, I don't like this, I don't know what to do with this, you take care of it, and you're just passing the baby to everybody else. My partner must take care of the baby. My mom must take care of the baby. This person on the street must take care of the baby. Okay, what is going to happen? The baby's going to think like, oh, my mom doesn't love me. She's not here. And it's going to start feeling very anxious because there is this disconnection between you and the baby. So you want to start to tune in to your body. That's where emotions live. Yoga, meditation, breath work, TRE are some of the things that you can do to start tuning into your body and reparenting yourself, talking gently and kindly to yourself to take you through that emotion that you are experiencing. And that will stop the cycles of self-abandonment together with setting boundaries. The shadow is that they are also very self-critical, right? If I have this core wound of I'm not enough or I'm too much, then I'm going to be very highly critical of myself and constantly thinking, how can I improve? And the thing that I always tell my partners is that, not my partners, my coaching clients, is that your current partner is a physical manifestation of your inner world. So how you treat yourself, you're going to find a partner who treats you in the same way. So how that saying goes, that we only let other people treat us the way we treat ourselves. That's basically the same thing. So if we want to change what's happening outside of us, we need to change what is happening inside of us. Which takes me to number 10, which is the emotional regulation, which, like I've already mentioned, this is a big area that can be worked on for the anxious preoccupied individual to feel more safe within their own body. They just never learned that. It's a skill. They haven't been taught it. If you haven't been taught it, no problem. I wasn't taught emotional regulation. So we can all learn this. If I can learn this, definitely you can learn this as well. So what are some of my tips? Okay, my tips are: learn on how to regulate your emotions if you're working with this by yourself. Do things like yoga, journaling, TRE, self-soothing, like baths, and just find things that feel really good for you. Meditation and self-validation. So what are the positive things about you? Build your own self-confidence. Learn how to be comfortable in your own space. And then if you're working with a coach or a therapist, then work through the abandonment core wound. And once you work through that, it is really going to revolutionize your life. Wherever you are on your journey, well done for being here, for taking this time to learn and grow. A lot of people don't do that, and you're doing that. Even if it's tough, even if it's messy, even if it's taking time, you are taking the steps necessary. Now think about what is some small step that you can take for today to become more securely attached. Maybe you can do something nice for yourself, like take a beautiful bath, take a few breaths, 10 belly breaths, take a walk in nature, and just learn how to self-soothe, how to self-regulate. And this is a practice that has to happen throughout the day, not only in times of conflict or when you are extremely triggered. You need to be able to use these skills when you are very regulated, so that when you're dysregulated, it's not just this odd tool that you have in your toolbox that you haven't used and now it feels very awkward to use. Okay, so emotional regulation, all of these skills has to become a daily practice, consistent practice. Maybe every hour you take time, set an alarm clock to take 10 belly breaths, check in with yourself, check in with your baby, right? Your inner child, check in with your baby and just calm it down. Do something that will make yourself feel good now and in the long term, right? So sometimes eating cookies is making you feel good in the moment and then sick later in the future. So just do something that feels good in the moment and will benefit you in the long run. Thank you for being here with me. I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. Please leave me your comments and questions down below and I will be sure to get back to them. Till we meet again, big love.